Google does justice to giving you all the answers you need, of course. So if you haven't installed Git already, you should just check install Git, and you should bring this to be the first thing that pops up actually. So you can do that on Mac OS, Linux, or even Windows, regardless of the device it is that you're using. But since I am using this on Mac, I already have it downloaded. However, let's just see what the process looks like. You just follow through with the steps right here, and brew install Git. And if I try this, it will immediately tell me I have it on my device. But just to show you that this is what the steps do look like, we are going to right. So it's basically updating mine, but if you're doing it for the first time, it's going to give you like an entire installation process, and it might take some time, just like this is taking some time, but give it a minute or two, it should be done with. And while that is going on, you can also go back to your browser to see what the next steps are. Just to, yeah, so with that, you're going to actually have it ready on your device. And if you want to use, install the Mac ports, if you don't already have it, then you can also run this command down here and all of that. So this gives you like, this is basically for Mac OS, but let's see what the Windows version would look like as well. So down here, there is like different versions, the 32-bit Gits, the 64-bit Gits. These are like, depending on your software, actually. I recall when I used to use Windows, I had to install like the 32, because if I install the 64, my system would act up. And so like it depends on the system or the software that you're using. You might have to like pick one installer to go with, but either way, this is what it looks like for Windows. And then for a Linux like Ubuntu and all, these are the steps which require so many command lines. You just have to like pick the one that works best for you. And that is about getting Git. Yes, okay, mine is completely updated, and right, I think it should be working now. So the next thing we're going to do is so now that we have Git, assuming you're installing it for the first time, there's actually something you should bear in mind, which is trying to configure this Git locally. Because if you don't configure it, it's just going to be existing on your device as something that you installed, right? And the only way to do that is by running these commands here: git config global, the username, and then down this username right here is the username for your GitHub account. Now, if you haven't created a GitHub account, you might also have to like go straight up to create your GitHub account directly. So like I said, I already created my GitHub account, but I am going to log out for the sake of this course. And so you sign in with your email address or whatever mode it is you want to sign in, fill out the forms, and follow through with the sign up processes. It should take less than 5 minutes to be done with, to be honest. And then the email address which you use here is what you're going to use eventually for your the next config command, which requires your email. So you copy this right here. And the good thing is these commands are available on like the browsers, like, so you can just Google how to configure Git and you see several resources on it. So you don't have to cram this or be a pro at it, because I know at every interval I always have to Google how to do this whenever I like swap my devices. So if you are that person, don't be ashamed. It's okay to Google and check it to be sure. So replace it with your GitHub username. In my case, I use Anita Human. So now that is my GitHub username, right? If you check it, it's going to correspond. And take note, I did add the hyphen because it's my hyphen. The hyphen exists on my username. So if you don't input the right username, it might not just turn out as you expect. And then for the email, you also have to like copy these and then put down your email. And by the time you're done with this, you should have your Git completely running. So okay, I'm going to have to exit that. All right, now you're going to pardon me because I'm still very much getting familiar with my terminal as well. So yes, okay. So should in case you have any troubles with that, there's nothing Google can't solve. If I'm being honest, you can always Google out yourself out of every troubles. So do well to check that out. And so now we have Git completely set. How do we know that it's working? Okay. Yep. Yeah, like I said, there's really nothing that Googling doesn't do, and it's not a thing to be ashamed of, because I do it all the time. So right, it gave me my username right there, just like you can see. So you can also check that to confirm yours if you're not familiar with it, and that gives you like an idea of how to get on board. And so now we have Git running, and we probably have a GitHub account already. I didn't go on with that because I already have a GitHub account, and I don't think there is need for me to actually create one right now. But if you haven't already, do take if a minute or two to create one on your end, and follow through with the config steps. Now, some of the basic Linux commands that would be helpful for using running or using your terminal while doing this is first the PWE, which is going to help you know which directory it is you're in. Now I am on this. Let me swap this right here and put it next to this. Okay, so we don't have to swap the pages at any point. Okay, right here. So the PWD is going to give you like an idea of which directory is you're in. For instance, if I am in my documentation or in my any other file folder at all, and I type this, is going to point out where is I in. But at the moment, I am actually at the home or at the base, so it's giving me that I'm actually at the base. And if I want to list out the document or the folders that are in this particular directory, the ls is one command to look out for. And if you do this, it's going to list out the different directories that exist at my base. And you can see it has the documentation, the applications, desktop, library, movies, and music. So I'd like us to navigate to the documents because that's where we're going to doing most of the work. And to do that, we're going to use the cd command and then the document folder that it is that we want to navigate into. And if you take notes, there's a difference in this, which means we are already in the particular directory we want to be in. And now we're here. I want to also see how many files that are currently existing in it, or to see what is actually in it. You can see that there's quite a number of these, but I want us to create a folder called demo, just specific for this workshop. So to do that, there's this make directory command that you can use, and then remove directory. But let's start with the make directory. So if we do the mkdir next to demo, and then to get into the demo that we just created, we're going to let's just confirm that it is here first so we can all see that. Yes, you can see our demo exists right here. So yes, we have a demo folder right now. Let's cd into this and see what else we can do in demo. So cd demo. So in case I say demo through this, just know that I'm referring to the demo folder we just created. Yes, so at this point, we are in the demo folder. And I want to create a file in this demo folder that we can work with, right? And to use that, you can use the touch command next to the name of whatever it is you want to, the file you want to create. And this is simply just touch new.txt. And if I want to see if this has been created, the list of the ls command does that, and we can see we have that available here. So awesome, we have our file that we're going to be working with. And like I said, the make directory or remove directory command will either create or delete a folder that you're working with. And I do not want to create this right now, but for some reason, if you want to create if you made a mistake at some point and you want to create what you already have, you can just use the remove directory command and proceed with that. So moving on to the next option on our to-do, let's look at some commonly used Git commands. And so we are currently in our demo folder. And to play around with Git, let us try and see how Git works. So on its own here, Git currently just exists on my system. Now, unless I initiate it or I give it the commands that, okay, Git, I want you to take control of this particular file, or I want you to come and be in charge of this particular file, it's not going to do that unless I give it a command. And to do that, you simply have to run the git init command, which initializes Git on that particular repository. And on its own, you're not going to see it as a file because it starts with a dot, and most of the files that start with a dot on your computer will not appear if you do a list. But yeah, let's cd into the new. Let's run git init in our demo file and see what that gives us. Oops, double T. Awesome. So it has been initialized already, just like you can see. And you might also want to read some of these hints saying using master as the same name for initialized branch. If you haven't or you're still getting familiar, some of these commands do come in handy. But for now, we have git initialized. So let us see if we run the ls, is going to appear. Obviously not. Like I said, it starts with the dot git. So it's not going to be listed out here because it's kind of a hidden file at this moment. But if you open this folder in VS Code, for instance, you are going to actually see it listed out. So I'm using the terminal because I want us to get familiar with our terminal. However, the VS Code makes a lot of this effort that I'm doing here easy, because you can easily just do create file here, and you're going to have like all of this done or like ready to go. But I'm just giving you a hint on how to use your terminal if you're still like getting or finding your way around it. So basically we have Git running here, and as you can see in the terminal, it's already showing that in VS Code, it's showing that I've already made changes, because yes, Git has been initialized. So there are changes that are going on, and that's mostly what Git does. It tracks every contribution or every change or every new item that is added into that particular document or folder that you have created. And for this case, we're talking about our demo folder. So I've already created a new file which is available here, and it's showing me that it is an untracked issue. And how do we know that it is untracked? In the command line, we basically run the git status command, and the git status command lets us know that, okay, this is what you have done, or this is the changes that have been effected or this is what has been done so far. So as you can see, it's showing that we created a new file called new.txt, which is available right here. And to make this, or to make this, to make these changes get into the staged form, which is, for instance, when you take a picture and the pictures are being processed. Let's just take it that way. You've taken a picture, and yes, pictures look good. You can see it on the camera, but of course they're not in reality until they're processed. So like that stage in which the pictures are still on the camera and still have to go through the process of printing and all, that can be classified as staging in Git. I know it doesn't like completely explain it, but yeah, that's an, I just want to give a hint of what the git add command does. And so we're going to simply just run the git space add space the full stop. And you're not going to mostly get any feedback, but just watch till I run the git status again. And now it has moved from on track to newly effected changes, which means Git has recorded this, and it's available that yes, it is actually existing, and these changes have been moved to the staged area. They're no longer in the unstaged. So now we have these changes here, but if you check the GitHub repo, if you check this, you're still going to see that it's not completely approved in VS Code yet, because the VS Code is still showing that these things are just in staged. So how do we move it from stage to permanently being on Git, to the point where you know that, okay, if anything happen now, if this folder deletes and I decide to, okay, run this thing again, I'll still see these changes. And that's the part where you have to commit these things. And by committing, you simply just run the command git commit, and then the message that you want to commit. So for me, I'm just going to say first file. But your commit message can be anything. And for a complex project, you might want to like write a commit message that makes sense. So whenever someone comes across that particular change that you've made, they can just use your commit message to understand that, oh, this is what this person did. Like for instance, you're adding a button and you're changing the color. You could say updating button and switching color. I don't know, but at some point, just make it make sense so that your teammates understand that this is what you're doing. And so this gives us the returns that these changes that I've made have actually been committed. Now, if you check the Git status again, it's going to show that there's nothing to commit because everything has actually been pushed into the Git itself, and there's actually nothing to commit in the working tree at the moment. Now, how do we know that, okay, we have actually been doing this effort so far? Now that's where the git log comes in. So git log will give you an idea of all of the history that has been going on. As you can see, it even tracks the time that this change was made, the date that it was made, and even gives you a hash to that particular commit. Now, much later, we're going to look at how we can use this hash to revert changes or even like undo an entire change over time. But for now, let's take it easy and slow. Yes, so that is what these commands are. We're going to look at the git clone, git push, and remove much later. And let's move on to our next slide, which tells us how to set up your GitHub account. So now we're going to move all the way to GitHub again. Like I said, if you have created your GitHub account already, lucky you. If you haven't, welcome to my world, because now I have to log in again. This is my GitHub account, by the way. So I think at this point I'm skeptical. Should I input this? Should I stop sharing before I type this down? I think I'll stop sharing before I type that down. Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing just so that I can input this right here. Give me a moment. So if you have a GitHub account, one thing to do in terms of authentication is download a Google Authenticator app. This is actually handy in the sense that it helps you to track your passwords. And in case you forget it or someone gets access to your GitHub, your Authenticator app will come in handy because you get notified if someone else has access to this, and it also tracks other passwords. So that's what I am trying to get a hold of right now. Sorry for the delay. Right. Okay, I think we're in. Back to sharing my screen. All right, so this is what my GitHub account looks like. Like I said, every once in a while I make contributions, but mostly in terms of documents, and every once in a while working on project configurations and stuff like that. So now I want to create a new profile and a new project. Particularly is going to be specific to the project that we're working on, which is demo. And if you're doing that, do well to select the owner of this, because you might not have access to most of this, and you wouldn't want to create a new repository in a project that you do not have complete access to. So be mindful of that. But since we're working with project demo, this is what we're going to do. It has options of doing it privately or publicly, but I'm going to be doing it public because it's mostly just for this. And if I want to add a README, you can do that. The README is not going to be as detailed as you would expect it to, because over time you have to edit it to input what should be there and what should not be there. But yes, that is what your README would does. So the README for most projects to comprise of, how did I forget that word? Yes, the README for most projects often comprises of all that you need to know, from why the project exists, installing the project and all, but that is not why we are here. So I just went on to create this. And another good thing that GitHub does is immediately you create, for those that are still getting familiar with it, it gives you like guide on how to go along with this. So this is what this repository link looks like currently. And you can also find it right here, but we're going to copy this link, and I want to link this repository that we've created locally to what is available on GitHub, which we just created right now. And our steps are right here, which you can follow through with it. We've already done the git init. We've even added like a new file, but you can also like manually add git the new file, which is something that you'd want to do. Simply run the touch, then the readme.md, and that will be available for you in Git in your terminal. And so I've committed my first commit, and so now I want to push these changes, but I want it to reflect on here. And before I do that, I'll have to link it to my local device, which means I'll have to run this git remote add command here. And so I'm going to copy this and go straight up to. The thing about having so many browsers open is eventually you're going to get confused. So don't be like me and have several browsers open. And so I'm just going to paste this here. And normally so many persons would prefer typing it, but I feel like if you type it, the chances that you might forget one word and then you'll be having an error that you don't know where it originated from. So just copy it and paste right here. And okay, so running that means that we're trying to connect what we have to the local repository, and this should be able to do that. And since that is already done, let's try pushing our changes to see what happens. Okay, to push. Yes, so this is the first push we're making. So we actually have to request permission, and it says that we have to use this particular command to set the upstream down to master. And you can just copy that and paste as well. Okay. Now I have to enter another key. What the hell? Okay, I'm going to deny that to see if it works, because it worked much earlier when I tried it. Huh. Asking for my username and password. Okay, my username right there. And my password. Okay. We're going to have to do that again. The downsides of signing out is you have to do all of this all over again. And give me a moment. Right. I think I got that password wrong once more. God, please let it work. Gosh. Okay. To be honest, I'm terrible with password and I always forget them. So I have to write them down somewhere so I don't forget them. And I wrote down this one in a notebook. So I have to go and check my notebook. And that sounds extremely embarrassing to say on here, but yes, I have to go and check my net for my passwords.
Okay,
I can't be the only one that forgets password that easily.
that's fine. Okay, do you need like how many minutes do you need so we could just like
Okay. Less than 2 minutes, I promise. Less than 2 minutes, because the
that's fine. You
notebook
can just
is
turn off your
not far
camera
from
and then
my table.
that's fine.
Oh my God, this
Okay,
is so
so guys,
crazy.
are we Anita, hi, you could just quickly rush. Okay, she's gone. You could rush and get your notebook while I hold up the class while you get back on it. Okay, so hi everyone. I hope we're enjoying the class. If you have any questions at this point, I think you could drop them on the chat. So we have questions we could get back to once she's settled. I think we all have the moments where we forget our password. I literally have a book where I write all the passwords I have. Every account I open, I have to write in and note them down so I can understand really. So it's one of those things. Uh,
I'm right here.
okay, you're welcome. So the streaming link is on the on has been posted to Slack and on YouTube and on Facebook, but I'll be sure I also share it here. This is a YouTube
Yes.
streaming. Okay, so Anita, you can continue, please. Thank you.
Okay. So for safety reasons, don't be like me. Always write down your passwords. Okay. Sweet Jesus. Oh, wow. That don't seem to be the trick today. Okay, that is taking too much time, and I really don't want to keep anyone waiting. So I am going to have to explain all of that. Yes, so sorry, and for some reason the password didn't work. So I have to confirm that much later, and I wouldn't want to stall this. So yes, if you actually do click on the push, it does get your changes onto GitHub eventually, because yes, if you manage to get your passwords, unlike me, you do get your changes onto GitHub eventually. And they do reflect once you reload, because yes, you must have made your changes, and they did reflect, unlike me as well. So onto our next slide, which is going to talk about how to fork and clone a repository. Right. So coming from a background where I have to like contribute to open source projects, oftentimes I find myself jumping on random projects, and most of these projects I'm not really familiar with, but open source does pave the way for that. And as you can see, so most of these projects do have like a lot of processes, like, and like I said, the README does do justice to explaining what these projects are all about. And so if you want to get on board with a particular project that you, and this one is already forked, and I already have like a copy of this, but let's go to a project that I have not contributed to, for instance, React project. Why am I going randomly when I could just search this here? Okay. Now I want to check the React project itself and see if we can get started with this. Or the free code camp right here. So this particular repository is available for you to contribute. You can see so many other options underneath. But let's say we want to collaborate with this project and see how far we can go with it. And that is where forking comes in. I know Dillion did do a lot of sharing on what forking is. So it basically gives you like a copy of this project that you can play around with. And whatever changes you make on your fork does not affect the main copy, and does not in any way reflect to that particular copy until it is accepted or approved by the owner of that repository. And right now, I want to see if we can fork this down to my own repository, which I just did. If you come across an open source project, do well to give it a like, because these projects are doing awesome work. So if you haven't, do well to start a project, and you can proceed from there. But it's not a compulsory thing. It is just showing appreciation that, okay, you're doing an awesome work, and I really support you for doing awesome work. So yes, you can also start that. So now this has given me a copy of the free code camp code. I can literally run this locally, following the steps that they've provided, and I'll have free code camp websites running on my software or on my device. And that is what the fork does. And how do you get this copy that you have forked into your computer or locally? You basically do that by copying this code here. So you see this link that is available here. You can just copy this and go to your terminal. So all right, so to get this done, to actually get a clone or to make this copy available, you have to clone it. And the cloning is what we are trying to do right now by running the git clone and then the link to the thing that you're trying to clone. So I forgot that was still running. So we have the git. Let me clear this because everything is beginning to look so congested. So the git clone, and then next to it is the link to the profile that I just forked. Now, one tricky thing is if you don't fork a repository and you decide to copy the link from the original file, you might be able to clone it, but you might not be able to make changes to it unless you get permit from the owner. And so you have to actually clone it, and you can see that it's showing me that this is my copy, Anita a human's copy. So that is what we're trying to do. Where did my documents go to? All right. So while this is cloning, okay, I'll have to get this back. Yes. So this is still cloning, and for most projects that are really, really large, it takes a lot of time, like minutes. Sometimes I know I've tried to clone a project that took up to 30 minutes, and it was scary because I was beginning to feel like I was doing something wrong. But it eventually did clone. So sometimes it might take a while, but give it some time. And you should have that running. So this is taking a while, 40% or the law. Yeah, so this cloning will give me access to the free code camp project code base. And at this point, I can decide that, okay, I want to change the free code camp logo and put my own logo and change anything, but that is not right. I'm just giving you an instance. So in case you want to do something like that, that is completely free because you have the clone of this project, just like cloning human beings work. You have the clone of it, so you can actually play around with this particular project to your to how you feel. And your changes might not actually affect the main project unless they are accepted. And to be accepted, they have to be reviewed by the maintainers, which will follow the process of getting a pull request approved. And we're going to talk about the pull request shortly. So we have a few minutes till this is done, or a few more percents. So once you have your clone available, another thing you want to do is to make sure that what you have for that particular project is like your clone that you've made is up to date and like it's tallying with the what is available on the website. Because most times you make a clone like yesterday, and then today the project has made like 20 changes over time, and those 20 changes are not reflecting in your clone, obviously, until you actually try to like update it with the upstream. And you can do that using the commands here. You can see I've already written down some of these commands, and so you can also just copy some of these commands to follow through. So you run the command git remote add upstream, and then the link to what we where we copied this from, which is the free code camp website. So we're going to add this particular link so that it syncs with whatever we're doing here. In case we eventually create a pull request, whatever we're doing here will sync with the top branch. So we then run the git remote -v to see the versions that are available. You can see that we have ours right here, and then underneath it is the upstream, which is also available. And then git pull upstream master. So like I said earlier, these commands here are actually available online. So like it's not a must that you must grasp all of these right now, because personally I usually most of the time Google every command that I use, because if I can forget my password, what else can't I forget? Crazy, yes? So yes, all of these commands are available online. So you can actually just Google it and you don't have to crack your head about certain things. And then down to branching. Now I have created these, and I'm sure that, okay, it's the same thing with the master and everything is, in sync. What next? Now I want to make a contribution to this free code camp repository. However, I do not want the free code camp. I don't want to make the changes directly to the main disk. I want to create like a subset for my own contributions only, so that to be sure that yes, this subset that I have is good before it can be approved into the master or the main branch. Now you can do that by creating a branch, and I also provided a link here, which I'll be sharing the slides much later, to a site that I think you would find pretty much interesting. It's going to give you like okay, yeah, so this is a site I came across, and it's basically going to help you better understand how branching works in Git. And so let's see. So if you want to play around with Git to better understand branching, I think this would be the right um so whenever you make a commit in GitHub, yeah, this is exactly how the process works. Every commit you make follows like a sequential process. And if you want to go back to the previous commits, you have to like follow the same sequence, or you use commands like git reset, which completely wipe out the memory beforehand. And for a project that you're collaborating with, that is not actually healthy, but we're going to stress more on that in a bit. I just thought you should check this project out. Learning git branching.js.org. That's what the site is. In case you want to further find out more, I'll also share the link to the slides. And so you can go ahead to create a branch, and to create a branch, you basically just run the command git checkout, then the branch name. To make it faster, so that you can just create a branch and then move into the branch that you're creating, you can just git checkout dot, what are we going to name this branch? Okay, let's just call it trial. And right, did I spell that wrong? Yes. Yes, so that switched us to the trial branch that we just created. And so at this point, we are in the same project that we're working on, right? But we are currently, any changes we make will affect in the branch that we just created, which is trial. And if you come back to the main branch, those changes might not be there. And so let's find out how this works in VS Code basically, and see how we can play around with this in real time. So this is our free code camp folder. Just like you can see, I created it in the demo, and our other document which we created is still available here. And one thing you should also learn how to do is file organization, so you don't get everything messy at the end of the day. So let's open the terminal here and check out to trial. So we're already on trial right now, as you can see. Now let's go to any place at all in VS Code, or basically just create a new file in the web, in the source code, right? So we're not going to write any codes today, because yes, this session is not for writing code, but I just copied the code that is existing and pasted. But you can already see that a change has been made. Right, so we have this right here, and this particular change that we've made is available in our trial.js, right? And so we're going to try to see if this is actually an existing change by running our git status command. If you remember, we had this much earlier. You can see that it's showing that there's an untracked change within the free code camp file. And we can also do the git add, which we did much earlier, just to follow through with the same steps. And okay, so all of this is just telling me that I created a new repository inside another one. And like I said, learn the organization. I think I missed the step of leaving this particular demo to create this separately. But in case you're doing this at home, do well to do it in separate folders so you don't get mixed up at the end of the day. So let's check the Git status again. And it's showing that we have actually staged these particular changes. So we can also add the changes that we just made now. Assuming we are perfectly okay with it, we've run VS Code locally, and these changes that I just made right now do what they're supposed to do. Now, however, all of these commands that we're doing here can easily be avoided by just using the side commands that VS Code provides, which you can see it has the open file, discard changes, stage changes, or even to commit these particular changes, right? But if you want to just familiarize with the command line and maybe just get more conversant with it, you can always go on to Google these commands and type it. But these buttons right here make it really more convenient for anyone to use it, even if you're just getting used or getting started with Git and GitHub. So this saves a lot of stress. And I'm just doing this because I want you to see that you can use your command line to get everything done. So we have our changes staged at this point, and I want to commit this to C. So it's still the same process we're going to follow -m. For some projects, however, to commit a message, you have to add like -s, which is like a sign off to indicate that, yes, these changes were made by you, and it kind of attaches your email to that particular changes, like some DCO check, but that's a long process altogether. But we're just going to do the basic, which is updates made. Right, so we have committed this, and let's check the Git status again. Okay, no changes added to commits. And if you check this end here, you can also see that these particular changes have been committed. And let's stage this. There is a pending issue, and Git status again to be sure. Free code camp. The editor could not open due to unexpected error. Unable to read this. Okay. And like I said, it's simply because we created this in another repository that was already existing, which caused all of these errors. And so you can also avoid that by not doing what I just did. But to move forward, we have committed these changes, and everything so far is looking good. Aside the fact that we're getting this error because it is in another repository, so everything so far is looking good. You can also commit, go on to push this, but this cannot happen because there's some things that we have to still make sure that these changes or these commits that we've made are available, which is check out to the master first to go back to the master branch to be sure that, okay, I made changes in my branch that I just created, which is trial, and it didn't reflect in the master. So how do I get that done? And then we're going to fetch the git fetch. Okay. Couldn't fetch reference trial. And I wonder why. Okay, so the git add and then the file name. Okay. And what will be committed. So what was created is, yes, a bunch of things that exist in FreeCodeCamp source template. Yes, so it's superblock.ts. TSX. Means that, oh, that does not match any file. That's weird, because it did spell the super right, the block right. Okay. The file, that's a lot of errors expected, or unexpected rather. Okay, so however, at this point, I'll try to run the git and merge upstream to see what next we get. Not something we can merge, and there's no command Y. Let's run this. Oh, this is definitely going to ask for my password. Gosh. And I still can't figure out my password. Okay. All right. So I'm going to explain what goes on from here, because I really can't seem to remember my password at any point. I don't know why I can't remember it. But should in case you run all of these commands here, the git checkout is going to take you out of the master's branch, which out of the branch that we've created, which we made changes in, down to the masters. And now out of that, we are now in the masters branch, which was originally existing, and we didn't want people there to see what we are doing in the secret branch we created, right? So we're going to run the git fetch origin master to actually fetch the what is going on there. And then the git merge, oops, that's too far. The git merge upstream now adds all of the contributions from the branch that we created, which is trial, and what is already existing in the free code camp together. And at that point, we can decide to push it to GitHub, running the GitHub git push origin, which gets all of that out there. Another way to actually merge the main to this is the git checkout branch name, and then git merge master. That is basically merging your branch, or your branch, which is a trial, to the main branch that was already existing under the free code camp. And then the git push that to origin, which will now push all of your changes to the GitHub, the free code camp repository itself, and everything will now be in sync at the end of the day. Now that is all about the branching. Now down to the commits, there are two different ways that you can commit. Like I was saying earlier, you can run the normal commit messages for projects using the commit-m, which basically will just send your commit messages right onto GitHub, right? But for some projects, when committing your messages, you have to like indicate that, okay, this came from me, and it attaches your like your username and your password, your email to the commit message. or to the commit that you're trying to make, and that's where you have to like add the -s right in front of it. And this is not for every project. However, most projects expect that you specify this right there. Now, pushing through your local changes to the remote branch in GitHub, you actually still need to use the GitHub push, that origin, and then the branch name that you're pushing this to. And in certain cases, assuming I've made my changes and I'm still having like so many errors, and but like, and this is because of maybe a conflict that is existing in the background, that's where you can use the git push -- force, which will like make everything go by force. Obviously, that's what the force does. So like that is not always advised, but there are certain cases where you've made like a conflicting contribution, and you want to actually push this thing to maybe fix the merge request, that the merge that the merge conflict that you're experiencing. So that's where like the push comes in. And then once that is done, you get to like create a pull request. And to do that, we have to go back to GitHub right here. So now I've made a contribution to this particular repository, and everything is working well so far, right? But I want to contribute. Let's go to our free code camp repo. So now I've made a contribution to this, and everything is working good and everything is working fine. So at this point, you're going to get like a notification here that says this branch or this particular repository is ahead or behind by how many contributions, or is ahead by how many contributions, and that is up to you. Can you just take me to the fork I just made? Okay, right here. So should assuming I made a push to this branch is one commit behind with the free code camp, as you can see. Yeah, so if I had pushed this to GitHub, yeah, right here, it would have shown that I should create a pull request, because I've made a change that free code camp does not recognize yet unless I create a pull request. And that's where you open the pull request and click on this, writing down a bunch of messages explaining all that you are doing. However, now that my branch is below, like I was saying, sometimes projects are so fast in like working and doing all these that you have to like at every point update. That's where you can like sync to this. There are like a bunch of commands that you can run, but we're kind of running low on time right now. So I'll just click this to update, and it kind of syncs everything together. And that is about getting your project up to date with even with the main branch. Now, talking about git revert and git reset, there are certain times where you make a particular commit, and for some reason you're like, this commit is not committing. It's not committing, and I want to see what's going to happen if I take out that particular contribution. Now let's see the git log command that we looked at earlier. And we still have this first file commit that we made earlier, right? And at this point, I want to like go back. I want to go back to before I made this particular contribution or made this particular commit. And the git reset here, git reset command is going to completely wipe out every change that I have made to this repository prior to this particular commit. And that's why a lot of times it's preferred to use the git revert first before the git reset. While the git reverts, on the other hand, will just take out like that particular thing that you want to undo, and it takes it to the state that your project was before you ran that command. And to do that, you just have to either use git revert and then the hash. If you notice, I copied the hash for this particular commit. So you just copy that and then do this. Okay, so this would take me back to the untracked contributions that I have made, and it has deleted the new.tx file that we had earlier, which was before we actually made our commit, our initial commit, which was the first file. So it has reverted all of the contributions that we made as at that particular time. So that's what the git revert does. If we had used the git reset, however, it will completely delete every other thing that was done, like from the free code camp file that we installed down to where we actually made changes to that free code camp file. It will delete all of that, and all that will be left with will probably be the point where we just had an empty repository. But this still leaves the free code camp changes on track because they're still within this particular folder, which is the demo. And then for merge conflicts, right here, I did try to explain, because since I wasn't working with a real-time project, I decided to just put this here to save time. Oftentimes we make a contribution and then somebody else made a contribution and then it comes together and then there's a collide and you have to compare and contrast which contribution is better, or what should I take out and what should I leave in. And that's where you have to handle the merge conflicts that we've been mentioning much earlier. So when you get a merge conflict, this is what it will look like. Now you have arrows going to the left and then the arrows going to the right, and then there's a center which serves as a demarcator between what needs to be changed and what's already what has been existing already. So at this point, what is at the top is what needs to be changed or relooked at, and what is at the bottom underneath the hyphens that we see right here is what has already been existing that does not need so much changes on. So it's up to you at this point to either go ahead and take out what has been existing, what needs to be changed, or if that is what you want to remain, you take out what has been existing. But it's up to you at that point to take out all of these arrows to the left and or all of these arrows to the right, and then like merge it together and take out what you don't want on that particular thing. So that's how you basically tackle with a merge request. Now, for the bonus, I just wanted to point out that if you are looking for open source projects or projects basically to contribute and you don't know how to, there are certain commands or search terms that always come to mind, and everyone uses what suits them, right? I could decide to search for a term that's specific to documentation. You could decide to search for a term that's specific to code-based contributions, but all of that is up to you and how you write down your command. So you can actually use this right here. So this label takes us straight to available issues that are labeled beginner, and you can see there's a beginner here, there's a beginner here, there's a beginner here, and all of these are beginner friendly issues. Now another command also, and this has a way of running away all the time. Another command also what looking at is the unassigned. So this points out like unassigned issues that you should probably are worth checking. And like I said, you can basically type this, but for me, I always just copy and paste because yes, it saves me a lot of running around. So this brings out unassigned issues that are still available that have not been issued out yet. So you can now go ahead to dig into these available issues according to what it is that you're looking for. You can also look for issues that are up for grabs by using the issue is open label up for grabs. So all of these issues are what is currently up for grabs, and for most projects they might be assigned. For most projects they're not assigned, but it's up to you to now go ahead to look out for, like this particular one is still unassigned, so you can also take that up and get in. Another thing that you can also do with this command is, so you can also decide to change this and type docs.
Hi, Anita. I
Right.
think we should try to round up. Yeah, our time.
This. So another thing is identifying issues. I came across an interesting project that I think you all might want to check out, which is Ovio. Right here, you have like a list of projects that you don't have to go through all of the search that I just did. Ovio does that for you, and you have issues. You can also check according to the skills and what not you want to find out. So that's also an easy way to navigate or find issues, and you can actually check around GitHub. So that is all that I have for today. And I sincerely apologize for not remembering my password to completely walk through this. So next time I'll just write it in front of my screen so I don't forget. So thank you. That is all that I have for today. If you have any questions, however, you can always hit me up on Twitter. I'll be happy to share more resources with you that can help you navigate around all of this. But that is all that I have today, and we're running out of time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Anita. Thank you so much. We are happy you took our time to, yeah, we're happy you took your time to come and have this section with us. So I am certain some of us still have questions, and but since we are fast spent, could we ask the question on the channel on Slack? Then I, Wisdom, and every other person will try to give you answers as much as possible. I'm
Okay.
sorry we are not able to take any more questions for now. And then, okay, so and gladly, Anita has already offered you or tell us so that you have access to reach out to her on Twitter to share questions. So after the class, you could follow her on Twitter and then ask the questions that you need her to really answer specifically. So that is also fine. So Anita, I'm really grateful. We are thankful you had took your time to come and have this section with us in the community. Thank you very much for your help and your contribution to the tech community at large. Thank you, Anita.
All right.
Okay, guys. Okay, bye everyone. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Hmm?